everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today I want to talk about growth, change, and self-reflection in the time of COVID-19 and self-isolation. As I am filming this, we have been in isolation for like 4 months, going on 5 months now. I don't really know how much longer it's going to last. I live in an area of the country that has been particularly hard hit and has definitely been one of the more conservative places with reopening. As far as I know, basically every event between now and the end of the year has been canceled or moved online. It's not really likely we're going to start seeing any sort of munches or parties or in-person get-togethers until at least the fall, probably not even until the end of the year. And honestly, I have been feeling kind of lonely because of that, lonely and longing for my community, just feeling really nostalgic, remembering some of the things that I've done over the years, the regularity of events that used to mark different parts of my year, like going to Kink Fest in April, or the big camping trip that we do every year around 4th of July, my birthday. That's not happening this year. I'm not going on a camping trip. I'm not going to Kink Fest. I'm not going to these events and these places that used to be so important to me and made my summer so special. And last year in particular, at the camping trip we went on, that was just so amazing. It was such a wonderful experience, and I honestly, I can't really put it into words. I've just been thinking about it so much. All of the scenes they did and the people I talked to, the experiences, all of it was so amazing. And that event was the first time that I had ever really expressed my sadism with anyone. I have a whole other video where I've talked about this, but it was the first time I had done a co-topping scene, done any kind of topping at all, and like the person was really into it. It was fun. It was just like a casual, like nice time with my friends, and that then led me to play with that same person as a top and as a sadist a couple of months later at like an actual event. And now, because I haven't been able to go to any events and I've been isolating and distancing and all of these things, like I haven't really had any opportunities to even think about expressing any of this stuff with anyone since that time. And you know, I'm in a relationship with Mr. Tex. He's not a masochist, he's not a bottom, so I'm not gonna like switch with him. I'm not even really sure if that's like a term I would use for myself anyways. Like I don't really feel like I'm a switch where I like go between things, which is kind of like how that term sits in my head. It's more like I just have this other aspect of my identity that I express in much more limited ways at very different times than I do other parts of my identity. But eventually I had to like sit down with myself and do some self-reflection about where my priorities were, because eventually things are gonna start opening back up again, and what do I want to do with that time? What do I want to do with the time that I have now for being part of the BDSM community in the future, in terms of reading things, practicing things, taking classes? What do I want to do with that? And my instinct is always to just take like any classes I have time for, not really caring about coming at it from like a top or a bottom perspective, just trying to get as much information as possible. But now I've had to start to think about, okay, am I like serious about wanting to do more of this sadist topping thing? Do I really want to take time to really sit with this identity and explore it more when the opportunity presents itself? Or do I want to focus on like still having my like bottom submissive side fulfilled for those things that I enjoy that I don't necessarily do with the partner that I live with? And I had this moment a couple nights ago where I was just like picturing fun things that would be fun to do at an event if I had access to it. And I was remembering this one particular piece of furniture that's at a dungeon I used to go to, where it's a really big outline of a square with like wooden frame all the way around, and then there's chain that spirals around that's in the shape of a spider web. And I was like, ooh, it would be really fun to do like a saran wrap like scene where like you're getting tied up and you're getting like saran wrapped onto this like web, and then like the top partner is like this like spider queen character. Ooh, and it would be fun to do like caning with that, because caning is kind of like being bitten or stung by an insect. And like I was like, wait, what? Do I want to do this to a person, or do I want to have this like done to me? And like I honestly don't even really know the answer to that question even now as I'm talking about it. I think I was more thinking about it as like a top or a sadist, and I've spent so long kind of holding that aspect of my personality down because the sadist is the part of me that doesn't get to come out very often in real life, other than like giving people awful ideas for punishments and throwing my friends under the bus. But I think I do actually want to act on it more, like actually really take it seriously, because being a top is scary. You're responsible for another person's well-being, and that's a big responsibility. And it's been hard to sit with the gravity of like wanting to do that, and like being nervous about my skill set, being nervous about how able I am to really do things like that and actually make a scene that's enjoyable for somebody with the skill set that I have. And I just kind of was like, oh, well, you know, I did it once and it was fun. I did it again and it was fun. Like, I'll have opportunities to do it again in the future. But since those opportunities were taken away from me because of the coronavirus and everything being canceled for forever at this point, now I'm really starting to think, okay, well, when the opportunity is there, maybe I should actually take advantage of that and really think about exploring more of that side. And I've just been so nervous about potentially changing my identity because of that, and like again having those questions about like, am I a switch? Is that like a term that resonates with me? Is that really a thing I want to use for myself? And again, I think I come down more on the side of like, it's just a different aspect of who I am. It's not a thing that I switch to or from or between. It's just I'm a sadist, and that's there. And I don't really necessarily know how I feel about topping, but that's kind of part and parcel with being a sadist, because finding a top masochist is kind of different. And yeah, it's a whole experience. And then also with that, kind of reanalyzing the way that I relate to so many other parts of my identity being in isolation, right? Like, how important is pet play to me still? How important is bondage to me? How important are these things to me? Because when you can kind of just do whatever you want, you take for granted all of those opportunities. When you're not able to do those things, what are you really left with that you miss, that you wish you could do? And for me, like pet play, I still miss getting to do that in like dungeon settings around people. I definitely really miss getting to do a lot of bondage stuff. I definitely miss getting to do a lot of those things. And that's really helped me kind of reanalyze what I want to look for in the community and find relationships to do things with when I do get the opportunity to go back out into the kink world. Part of that has also been reevaluating my relationship to topping and domming. I generally have had a very knee-jerk reaction that I'm like, I'm not a top, I'm not a dom, because I don't want to have control over other people. That's not really my thing. Because I have so many random people on the internet who message me, email me, leave comments that are like, yes, mistress, please let me worship your feet. Please spit on me, mistress. And I'm just like, that's not me. I don't want that. And why are you messaging me this again exactly? This is a business email, sir. What are you doing? Yeah, so that has definitely put me off of wanting to even really consider anything like that. And being a dominant is hard work, and I definitely have very high standards for being a dominant. But I've been joking with one of my friends about like how oftentimes what will happen is like submissives, they get started in the lifestyle in their 20s. By the time they hit their 30s, they become a dom or a switch, because they realize that like a lot of doms don't live up to their standards, and they want to be able to be the good dom that they never got for themselves, which I'm realizing more and more often might have more truth to it than I expect it to. Like, it is kind of a funny joke, But I do have high expectations, and I do hear so many stories about doms that like don't meet the threshold for like being a decent human being or being a decent partner, that I'm like, frick, I want people to have good experiences in BDSM. I want people to have a good time. Maybe I can do that with my own experience. And I've talked about like service topping before, and wanting to make sure that people are like gonna have a good time during scenes that they do, and like I could still see myself doing stuff like that. But then the big black box I don't really look into is like being a dom. And there's a story that I often tell, and a thing that I often remember when I was first kind of considering doing BDSM, where I was watching the BBC series Sherlock. I think it's one of the very first episodes they made, where they introduce Irene Adler. And the way that they introduce Irene Adler is she's like this really luxurious, very like kept woman, where like she's always dressed to the nines. She has this amazing house. She has this servant that attends to her. And I was floored by that because I thought it was amazing, and I could never really decide if I wanted to do that for someone or be that someone. And especially early on, I think I related a lot more to being the person who was the servant for Irene Adler, the person who picked out the makeup, picked her dressing robe, you know, all of that stuff. Whereas now I'm like, hey, like it actually sounds pretty good to maybe be a little bit more like Irene Adler herself, and like have a household, have a lifestyle where that kind of thing is possible, because the representations of especially female dominance that I've seen is very focused on like this cold, cruel, demanding, detached kind of a thing that doesn't really speak to me. But the idea of kind of being like pampered and luxuriated sounds really nice. And this may just be because I'm missing my bathtub. I don't know. I haven't had a bathtub in like 4 months, and I want it back. I want my bathroom project to be finished so I can take a bath again. Taking only showers. They're nice, but it's not the same sort of experience. Anyways, we're not talking about my bathroom renovation problems now. We're talking about relating to the idea of dominance. And I think kind of reevaluating and rewatching that scene, and kind of thinking about, oh, well, you know, there's this whole other aspect of dominance that's sort of like is being pampered and like being fed like chocolate bonbons in a bathtub while you're also like caning somebody at the same time. Like that could actually be a fun thing to experience. Maybe kind of doing DS in like a scene only capacity, because like I still don't think I have the equipment to like do a 24/7 relationship, or wanting that. I don't picture it. But reevaluating, talking about things from a scene only perspective, or from things that are kind of more time limited, maybe, let's say, that could be really fun. And maybe it's just because of social isolation and quarantine, and not being able to have access to a lot of the normal like self-care stuff that I do for myself, from dancing and the gym and going to events, going to the spa. Like I can't do any of that stuff anymore. And so maybe it just seems really nice to picture in your head the idea of somebody doing all those wonderful things for you. But that's kind of where my brain's at, and maybe I'm reevaluating some things. And the reason why I'm blabbering on about all of this nothing is because I want to invite people who are listening to this to do the same things for themselves. I think that self-reflection is one of the most important things that you can do when it comes to understanding yourself in BDSM. Because if you go through everything on coast with like the default that you had when you first got into kink, you are going to miss a lot of opportunities to understand yourself better and have better relationships. Because if you get into kink and you're like, okay, I'm really into chastity devices and nipple clamps and spanking, and like that's my comfort zone, I'm gonna stick there, and that's kind of my whole trajectory within the kink world. That's where I want to be. And you just do that for 10 years, and you never pause to like stop and think, okay, do I still want this? What do I want from my relationships? Am I missing out on anything? Like, you gotta have those check-ins, because that is where the growth is. That is where you develop, is when you take the time to go, okay, I've been reading these books, I've taken these classes, I've been in the kink community, I've been doing BDSM scenes for 5 years. Where am I at now? And I am coming up on like my 5th year anniversary of being in the kink community, which for me is a big milestone that feels like it's more official that I've been doing kink for so long. And when I think about what I did my first 6 months in the kink community, it's so different from what I do now, what I'm really inspired to do, what I look forward to doing in the future as soon as I can again. And I just want to encourage people to take the opportunity to sit with themselves during this time when we are kind of forced to slow down, not play, not find new people, and go, okay, now that I'm totally by myself, everything is on pause, in this kind of moment of quiet where I can go back out into the world eventually and make anything that I want. How do I want to use that time? Am I still a top? Am I still a bottom? Do I still primarily like DDLG, or am I more into like bondage now? Am I into dollification? Am I into water sports? What am I kind of not typically taking the time to really think about that maybe I should give myself some more time for contemplation and reflection, especially when it comes to the motivations behind the things that you're into. You might know really, really strongly, I'm super into like CGL, but like what are the motivations behind that? What are the sort of nuggets there of your personality, your needs and relationships that motivates you to do that? And how can that better understanding lead you to find better relationships when we are on the other side of this? And I guess that's all I really wanted to talk about. I'm not at a place where I really have any answers about any of this, because my own philosophy is that you don't really know until you try. And so I don't really know until I get to my next scene where I get to express my sadistic side. Maybe it's just that I have a ton of energy for this pen up over the course of several months, and then I'm going to do one scene and I'm not going to want to do it again for another 6 months, just like the last time that this happened. Or maybe it's that I've sort of had time to sort of chill, decompress, find a new rhythm in life, and that new rhythm in life involves a little bit more sadism being expressed than it did before. Not that the sadism wasn't there, but how much am I willing to have this be part of the things that I want from being a member of the kink community again? And we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. And I'm always open to the possibilities of anything. Like I've always said that I don't think I'm a dom, I don't think I'm this and that, but if I meet the right person, like I'm open to those things changing. Like I'm not really into like CGL or DDLG. Maybe one day I'll just meet somebody and it turns out I'm like world's #1 best mommy. I don't know, y'all. It's very interesting to be in a part of life where there's so many things that I have questions about, but there's not really a way to get answers about, is this a true thing that I really want to do? Or is it just that I'm feeling lonely and I have a lot of time for self-reflection, and because of the current constraints of where we are in the world, my typical like self-care needs aren't being met, and BDSM is one way that I get my needs met, and it's one of the ways that I feel emotionally fulfilled. And my brain is going, okay, we're having difficulty having these needs met, and so maybe like thinking about BDSM like fantasies and scenarios we would want to do kind of helps bridge that gap to having that need met just that little bit more. Anyways, that's everything I have for you guys today. Hopefully this helped you in some way. Hopefully you found my babbling interesting. I just want to acknowledge that like BDSM is a process of growth and change, and I feel like one of the things I want to do with my channel is be honest with the conversations I'm having with myself and the ways that my identity may or may not be changing, because I don't want to feel like I need to pigeonhole myself to be like one thing on YouTube, be one thing to the internet, because I did that for years and it wasn't fun, and I want to be as true to myself as possible. And I hope that having these little moments of self-reflection encourages you in some way. If you have any other comments or questions, you can do that down in the comment section below. I always love hearing from you all. If you enjoyed this, if you want to see more from me, please do subscribe. I make videos twice a week about all sorts of kink and BDSM related subjects. And finally, if you really enjoyed this, if you want to support my work, the best way you can do that is through Patreon. A link to that is down in the description box below. If you already support me over there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.